What's going on, y'all? It's Sam from Central Florida Abundance, and I'm back out here today in my garden. It is the second week of September, about the middle of the day, and I'm going to give you guys another little tour, see how things are progressing. Let's get going. Now, if you remember from before, this is going to be the annual garden, and I think in the last video I had just planted this cassava, and so this was probably all just mulch, but now as you can see, the cassavas formed a nice canopy over this, and there's also cowpeas growing up throughout it. But really, my goal here is just, I've got the soil covered with wood chips, but they don't last forever and they don't provide everything the plants need, so growing more biomass on top, and these are all sacrificial. I'll probably push some of these seeds back into the ground. But as everything's growing, I'm starting to establish some more grasses through here. This is vetiver. And what this is going to make is a division between two beds in the garden. And as these grasses grow, you can see I've got them all lined on the back here too. And this is what they're for. I just cut this one. This is actually a lemongrass. I cut it for mulch for another area of the yard, but they're all meant to grow and be cut. The vetiver is going to be the main for this. Lemon's just, it's useful, but it doesn't grow back quite as fast. But that cassava will not all be for harvest either. A lot of it I'm going to cut down, let those roots break down in the soil, and then use all this top growth for mulch. I plan on planting strawberries and onions out here in the fall, and then in this bed that's on the other side of the grasses here, I'm going to be planting onions or garlic and some other winter greens. Oh, we got a weed in here. So there's really not too many because of the shade, but we still do get some seedlings popping up. But as you can see, there's not much other than what I've got growing here. This is sun hemp. And this bed backs right on up to the start of the forest garden area. It's a pigeon pea, again, you know, early succession biomass producer. The real tree that's going to be growing here is this Scarlet Beauty plum, but right now it's appreciating some of the protection from this pigeon pea while it establishes, and I've been cutting this back to feed on the ground. But everything's really coming into its own now. You know, the rainy seasons has started. We don't get a whole lot of rain here, but it's more than nothing, which is what we had been getting when I posted the last video. And so even with the little bit that we do get, you know, maybe 3 or 4 inches a week, everything's just exploding. So everything out here is doing really well. I'm really happy with it. And I mean, this is really just about 7 or 8 months of progress from, I mean, worse than just grass. But the banana circle here really just makes me happy. I mean, these were tiny. I don't think any of them were more than a foot tall when they were planted. And I mean, these moringas, they were in 4-inch pots and they'd been in there for way too long. We didn't really have any hope of them growing, but they have. It's much shadier down here now, and we've still been piling bokashi biomass. You can see the pine bark that was there is pretty much all gone. And I think the bananas are soaking it up. The two in the front here are plantains. And they don't have any pups yet, but all three of the bananas in the back do have one pup that I've seen. This is the Mysore, and then Dwarf Orinoco over here. It's got a nice pup on it. I need to cut back this canna lily. It was just trying to go to flower. I didn't even catch that. Flowers are a sign that it's time to cut them back. And then the dwarf Namwa back here, another little pup. And then the Napier grass. I cut that, I don't know, probably 6 times since I've planted it. I think the banana circle went in March, and now it's September, so it's definitely a producer, but you got to keep it under control. It's gorgeous though. And then the grapevine back here, it is crawling along this fence. I'm gonna give it a good prune this winter and hopefully get some more grapes off of it next year. They were very tasty this year. Now we're in the back of the yard in the forest garden. You can see the cassava up there, and maybe you can make out this plum tree from this angle. It was definitely struggling at first, but it's got a lot of new dark green growth on it. It's looking a lot happier. This dune sunflower down here is doing a magnificent job of keeping the soil covered. There is mulch under there, but it's really the dune sunflower that is keeping the weeds down. And there's still a little bit of stuff growing through it. Here's some tassel flower, but it doesn't hurt anything. And you can see this bed wraps. I pretty much got a completed half circle at least, and then it ends here, and then eventually it'll continue going. But this is what we got done this spring and summer, and I'm pretty happy with it. This bed right here with the eucalyptus, it's going to be a good chop and drop. We've got the pigeon peas, obviously sweet potato being a great ground cover down here. I think I had just planted those when I posted the last video. But as you can see, even though there's mulch, I'm doing my best to place plants in ways that are going to keep the ground green. You know, living matter, living roots in the soil is always going to be much healthier than just keeping a mulch layer. The enzymes that come out of these plant roots, and especially the diversity of plants that are in here, you know, the eucalyptus, the Spanish bayonet, the beautyberry back there, they all have very deep, wide, expansive roots. While then we've got the sweet potato and the panadol over here that are going to create shallow roots all along the surface of the soil. Same thing with the dune sunflower. They're not deep, but they spread very easily. And then we've even got cassava back here too, with its large tuberous root systems that hold lots of nutrients and starches. All these things feed the soil microbiology, and as they live and die, all of that matter for the most part will remain here in the garden, apart from the portion that I collect for the kitchen. But a lot of these plants won't even be eaten. I have not found a good culinary use for the dune sunflower yet, and I'm not really looking for it. There's also this Elliot's lovegrass here, which is just starting to flower. I'll definitely have some pictures of this in another couple of weeks when it really pops off. But we're building biomass. There was no shade back here. The soil, you can see it. This is what we're coming from, you know, sparse grass, very dry, very sandy, you know, very typical for a northern central Florida yard. Up here on the Lake Wales Ridge. But with forest canopy, we can restore those soils to what they used to be like when this whole area was forested. On a lighter note, this roselle, one of my my favorite plants. I try to grow this crop every year. I just harvested today, actually this morning, about 10 pounds. And these were the calyxes that I decided weren't worth harvesting. Some of them have some insect damage. Others are a little deformed because I don't water this bed. That's the other thing. I do hand water some things, you know, newly planted areas, but like the cassava up there, these established beds, they don't get much attention. Mostly I'll come out here and pull some weeds that I see, or weeds that I planted, like the cowpeas here that are trying to smother the roselle. I'll come out here, and when I harvest, I'll cut those vines back off the top. You can see I cut this one this morning while I was harvesting, just so it can die and decay. It all drops down here and feeds the roselle. You can see these stalks. Ooh, maybe. Yeah. And roselle likes to do this, just kind of lay out. But there's 6 plants in here. I've had about 3 harvests off them. I'd say about 20 pounds, maybe 25 pounds total after being peeled. And while I've been waiting for them to produce, I can eat the leaves. They're delicious. They're a little sweet, a little tangy. But really, this is an annual plant, and I'm going to be planting some trees in here. I have a jackfruit and a papaya I'm going to put in, as some more canopy, provide some more biomass, and they're going to benefit from all the organic matter that ends up in this spot. Once these plants start to deteriorate in the fall, all of that will return to the soil here, because I'll leave it where it is. And then, if I'm lucky, some of these seeds will make it into the ground, stay viable through the winter, and then sprout back up around next May, and I'll get some free roselle. Can we just admire the insect activity that has come to my yard? And I'm zoomed pretty far out on this camera, so this is how close I am. I'm right in their face, right up in these goldenrod flowers, and they are unbothered. You know, they're well fed and clearly pollinating things. I got some great seeds that are going to get spread around this bed. What a wonderful sight. And they're helping me too, because I've got okra growing in here now. You remember I think there was peanuts in before, and we harvested all those, but there are still some growing back from seeds that dropped. But really, I'm doing okra right now for late summer production. Just started harvesting. You can see the calyxes are starting to form on there. I got a couple, and soon we'll have more than we know what to do with. There's quite a few plants. Those are really just the first 2. I try to stagger them so I don't get all the okra all at once. But the pollinators out here are just making sure that no flower goes untouched. Oh, I just noticed eggplants started producing again. It's produced pretty heavy in the spring. It's a Black Beauty eggplant, but then it took a break for the summer. But I left it here, continued to let the soil improve around it, and now it's fall, and well, getting to be fall. We got another 10 days before the end of summer, and then it'll start producing heavy again. And even the avocado back there is really starting to improve, and it's really all due to the improved soil conditions. I'll try to get in here after we look at this guava. This thing was sad. I had it in a pot for way too long. It looked probably a little worse than this one does now. But now it's just flourishing. Red ruby guavas, wonderful for Central Florida. But yeah, let's get into this bed. Try not to disturb anything. We got a nice native red mulberry here from somebody I met, and he grafted it himself. He calls it the Oviedo red mulberry. Wish I could remember his name. Well, we got a pigeon pea making a nice canopy, and let's get under this and see what this soil looks like under here. We checked out the middle of the yard, and I will say it's pretty similar. And I guess I'm a little too over ambitious. It has only been, this bed's probably been here for 4 or 5 months. So not long enough to really build much soil structure, but it is retaining a ton of moisture, which out here in what basically has felt like the desert, any moisture we can retain is great. Time to chop this back too. I have been chopping back this sun hemp. You can see down on the ground, just as it gets too tall and it starts to shade out things, I'll cut them back. And you can. Now, I just want to take 1 minute to talk about the maintenance for this kind of system. And these systems are similar. They're all deep mulch style gardens with dense and diverse foliage covering most of the space in them. When you're gardening in that style, really all I do is maintain the edges here. I have not maintained them in about 2 weeks. So the grass is starting to grow up, but I'll be coming out here later today or tomorrow to cut those back. I do still mow the grass area, but as I expand the beds, that'll become less and less. There's not a whole lot of weeding that gets done inside these beds. I mostly rely on the shade and the competition to smother the weeds in the beds. I will pull grasses that I see encroaching on the sides, but usually on the sides of the beds, they haven't quite rooted yet, and it's pretty easy to get the whole root system out. And then I just throw it back in the yard and let that return some carbon. Now for this bed, the annual bed up here, because it did sit just with mulch for a long time, and I've got some China berry trees with coral bean growing through it, so lots of seeds get dropped in. As I showed earlier, occasionally some seedlings will pop up in there, so I like to walk through and just see what I find. I also find that in the deep mulch beds, if you do dig a large hole, like I dug this out to plant these vetiver grasses, sometimes you will disturb some grass seedlings or other seedlings that may be in the soil, and they'll germinate. But those are localized places that you keep an eye on. This area right here, I actually made a mistake and buried bokashi right, in this this hole here, and through burying that and digging such a large hole and disturbing a lot of soil, I stirred up a lot of grass seeds. And since then I've been fighting some grasses over here, but luckily it's right at the front corner of the garden, right by my back door, so I spend lots of time here. And then these peas that I have growing, they're really at the end of their usefulness. They're not for harvest, so I've just been stepping on these to knock them back. But yeah, here we are back again around the other side. Pay no mind to this pumpkin. It volunteered here, and I decided if it could grow, I would let it. I don't think it'll produce, but it's starting to make some male flowers. It doesn't get water. Still got the little nursery going on up here. Not a whole lot. Just got some more vetiver grass from my friend Pablo over at Eco Hustle. Shout out to Pablo. We still got the basil popping. That's really all I'm harvesting out of this. Surprisingly, this Everglades tomato is still going. But we're talking about maintenance. And this bed, I really wanted the edge maintenance to be easy, so I put a border on. So the grass has, and any other weeds, has something solid that it would have to go through, to invade this bed. It can't just creep along the ground And then I can also take my weed eater, run it right along the side of these logs. Clearly I need to do that, but it takes just a minute to edge this bed because it's a straight line. It's solid. It doesn't really matter if I hit the logs. And that was all done intentionally with ease of maintenance in mind. And eventually this front side will be lined with more grasses for biomass. And then that'll be the long-term maintenance for this bed. These grasses and the grasses that I add over time will be cut in the summer, twice a month most likely, and then all of that laid into the center of the beds. That's going to suppress the weeds, that's going to build the soil, that's going to return the nutrients to the system, and that's what's going to grow some delicious veggies that hopefully we'll have at market sometime next year. But for now, thanks for watching. I always appreciate it. If you'd like to see more, do like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see y'all next time. Take care.